Hello everybody, this is Kay, and welcome to my channel, Junking with Gigi. I recently did a flip-through video of these two little golden book junk journals that I made, and I had sewn these in using kind of a variation of the 3-hole pamphlet stitch, but where I crisscrossed them and used buttons on the spine like this. And I got a comment or two about how neat that was, and so I thought I'd pop on here today and do a quick little tutorial on how I sewed these in. Now this only works if you just have two signatures. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to put these two aside, and I've already made a cover. I'm just kind of doing a mini journal today. So I already made my cover. This measures about 5.5 by 4.25 in size, and I've got about a 3/4 inch spine here. And I also went ahead and got my signatures ready just to save time with this video. Now these are small signatures. They only each have 5 pages in them. But of course, you know, once they're in, I'll do some embellishing, which will chunk this up quite a bit. But for now, I'm just going to do these 5 pages per each signature. And I've already chosen a couple of little buttons. Now, another thing to remember with this sewing and binding method is that you need to use the buttons that have the 4 holes in them. A lot of buttons only have the 2 holes, but this particular project, you have to have 4 holes in order to be able to crisscross them like this, like on this one. So I have my cover, I have my signatures, my 2 buttons, and I know they're not alike, but they still both go nicely with this fabric that I used to cover this little journal cover. So that's okay if they don't match, just so they kind of go with your journal, I guess. I'm going to use black embroidery floss, and for this, I think what I did was I used about 5 times the height. So you're going 1, 2, 3, there we go, 4, and 5, and that might be a bit much. Where'd my scissors go? But I'd rather have a little bit too much than get almost done and find out I don't have enough. So I cut 5 plus a little more length of the embroidery floss, the height of the journal. I'm going to use a pretty big eye needle. You need to make sure before you start this that the needle you're using is going to go through the holes of your buttons. You don't want to get something that won't go through, because that just won't work. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and thread this in here just so this is ready for when I get ready to sew. I'm using all 6 strands of the embroidery floss. I also prepared a template ahead of time for my holes that I'm going to poke, and I did this I just cut a piece of paper that was the same height and width of my spine here, so it fits right down in there. And then I folded it in half, folded a little bit up from the ends, and then I also folded it in from the sides like this. And what that did was it gave me 6 intersecting little points where I've put the pencil marks for where I'm going to be poking my holes. So the first thing I'm going to do, and I also marked the top, so I always know what the top of my journal cover and my signatures are going to be. So I'm just going to nestle that down in there in place into my cover. And I've got a couple of these little quilting clips I'm going to stick on there just to hold that in place. I got to make sure I get it all the way even, top and bottom, and clip that in place. Now I'm going to take my piece of foam that I have, and I'm going to poke a hole at each one of those pencil marks for sewing in the signatures. I'm going to use the same template to poke the holes in my two signatures, but first I'm going to clip them together with some of these large paper clips just to kind of hold them together for me. This is going to be my first signature, so I'm going to use this first fold on my template to poke the holes. Holes poked in everything, and I'm ready to start the sewing process. And I know I've been speeding through this part of the preparation. You've seen me do this before, or you've seen other creators, I'm sure, do all this poking of the holes for the 3-hole pamphlet stitch and all. And so I just kind of hurried through all that because I really wanted to get to the sewing part of this, which is what the focus of this video is. So I'm going to start with that next. Now, the tricky part about this is it is tricky because you're sewing both of your signatures in at once. So you decide what your first and your second signature is, and I've got those in order, and we're actually going to start with the second signature. So I've got my 2 buttons right here. I've got my thread and needle ready to go. You're going to start on the middle hole of your second signature, and you're going to go through the middle hole on your cover on the spine where your second signature will be. So you're starting in the middle, going to the outside of that second signature. Now remember, you don't want to pull this all the way through. You want to leave a few inches. And I'm going to put a clip on that just until I get going pretty good, so I make sure I don't pull that all the way through. Okay, so we went in our middle hole of our second signature and out through the hole on the spine of where that second signature will be. And this is where I'm going to add my first button. So you're going to come up through one of the holes from the bottom of the button and down through the hole that is diagonal to it. I don't know if you can see that. Let me pull it a little bit closer. So this hole right here. Okay. Okay, sorry about that. I'm back. My oven timer went off and I had to run and pull some biscuits out of the oven real quick. No need to worry at this point like where it is, because we can always move these buttons around afterwards. They'll slide around on the spine and we can position them. So from here, what you're going to do is you're going to go, okay, so that was the middle hole of the second signature. Now you're going to kind of go at an angle, and you're going to come up through the first hole where that first signature will be. See, this is where things get a little dicey because you're trying to manage 2 signatures at once. So I'm going to come up through the hole for that top hole on the first signature and grab the first signature and come in through that top hole, but I'm going to do it from the outside. I'm just kind of finding my hole right now. Okay. Come in and pull it snug. Okay, so now we're on the inside of the top hole of the first signature. We're going to go down to the middle hole of that same signature, your first signature, and go through the hole, your pre-poked hole, and through the middle hole on your cover. Don't worry too much about things being kind of loose at this point. It's just going to be that way until we get a little further along. Okay, so this is what it looks like on the outside of the spine. Now you're going to come up through one of those empty holes that's closest to you in the button and down through the opposite hole diagonally. Okay, see how things are kind of loose? We're going to fix that all. And now you're going back through the top hole of the second signature. So, I don't know if you can see this. I'm going to try and kind of open this up so I can find the top hole. I'm going to go in through the cover hole. And you can do it in parts too. Like I'm going to go ahead and pull this through the cover, and then I'm going to find my hole, my top hole in my second signature. This is what I mean by it gets a little fiddly, and sometimes I have to find my hole by just poking it on the inside to see where it is. And oops, it's getting caught on my other pages, okay? And pull that in. So now you're back on the inside of your second signature. Okay? Now you can kind of tighten things up a little. I'm going to pull on this middle string. I'm going to pull on this just a little bit. I don't want to pull too hard because I don't want to tear anything. But you can see your crisscross, and you can slide your button around. And I'm going to try and just get things pulled a little bit tighter before I move on to the bottom part. Okay, that's a little bit better, but you can always tighten things up at the very end as well. Okay, so now we're going to drop all the way down to the bottom hole. We're in the second signature still. I'm going to drop all the way to the bottom hole. Go through that and go through the bottom hole in your cover as well of the second signature. Okay, so flip it around. See, there's a lot of flipping around and going back and forth with this project, but that's okay. Okay, now we're going to take our second button and go up from the bottom of the button through one of the holes and into the opposite button diagonally. I hope you can see that. Okay, and now we're going to go to the opposite hole diagonally, opposite middle hole. So we're going back up through the middle hole of the first signature. Okay, so I'm going to kind of open that up and work that through just like that. That went in actually really easily. Sometimes it's really a struggle getting the holes to line up and getting your needle and thread through. That was a blessing that it went through that easily. Okay, so now I'm going to go back down to the very bottom hole of this first signature. We're in the first signature again. Bottom hole, through the signature, through the cover to the spine. Okay, and you can see I'm starting to get a little short on thread. I'm going to have plenty, but I'm not going to have like a lot of extra. That's why you want to be sure, just to make sure you have at least 5 times the height. I actually did 5 times plus a little, and I think I'm going to have just enough. So now we're on the outside. We're going to come up through that one of those empty holes, the ones closest, and back through, down through the opposite hole of the button. And now we're going into the middle hole of the second signature, which is where we started. I'm going to go ahead and take my clip off now just to get it out of the way. I'm going to try and hold this snug and get this in. Hopefully it'll go in as nice and easy as the other one did, and it did. Hallelujah. Okay. So now, okay, and another thing is, just like the regular 3-hole pamphlet stitch, you want to have your threads on your raw ends on either side of that middle one. So I'm going to pull that one under, and I can go ahead and take my needle off. But before I tie anything, I want to make sure things are good and tight. I'm going to go ahead and remove my paper clips. And I am just going to start pulling on my threads here and there just to make sure they're nice and snug. And this might take, sorry, I just bumped my camera. This might take a little fiddling, and pulling and yanking of the threads, but you just want to get them so they're not loose. And you can see you can still slide your buttons around here. So I'm just going to work with this for a minute and get this nice and tight. Once you get everything nice and tight, I'm going to give both of these one more good tug upwards. Don't pull outwards like this when you're tying these, because that might rip your papers. So always pull straight up and give each one of them one more good tug. And I'm going to tie a square knot, left over right and right over left. I have a good bit of thread left over, so I'm just going to go ahead and do a little bow. Everything is tied off, and even at this point, after you've tied your signatures, you can still adjust your buttons. And mine, I can see, are a little bit, I like to just kind of eyeball them and center them. See how they kind of still will slide up and down. And I'm gonna get those where I want them. And then I forgot to warm up my hot glue gun, but a lot of times what I'll do, and I probably will do that, is I'll just dab a little hot glue under each button once I have them where I want them to hold them in place. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial on this little variation of the 3-hole pamphlet stitch and have gotten some inspiration from it and want to try it for yourself. It really is not that hard. It just gets a little bit fiddly because you're sewing in both signatures at once, but I think the finished product is just stunning. I just love the way this looks. I'm going to be using this method of sewing in signatures more. I think I want to try it with 4 signatures, but you'll have 4 buttons and 4 X's, if that makes any sense. But for now, I'm just going to stick with this 2 signature method and practice it some more until I get a little bit better at it. I'd suggest, if you want to try this with following along with my video, that you take one step at a time, pause the video, complete that step, and then start the video. That's how I do a lot of when I'm learning something new here on YouTube from another creator. I will get all my supplies ready, and then I'll start their tutorial, and I'll just keep pausing it as I keep up with them, you know, do one step at a time. Thank you so much for watching today, and if you have not yet subscribed to my channel, I would really appreciate it if you would. I'm trying to grow my channel. I've got almost 900 subscribers. I do have a 1,000 subscriber giveaway journal, and I've got a series of videos on the making of that journal if you want to look back at those videos. If you subscribe and like any one of those videos and make a comment on any one of those videos, you'll be entered into a drawing for that free journal. So thank you again for watching today, and God bless.